Welcome, folks. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcoming you into our digital habitat here. I hope things are going well in your habitat. It's getting springy around here, folks. I don't know how it's going where you are, but it is a welcome change after all of this snow this winter. So as you're coming on in, I'm also going to invite in, as usual, some guests for, as we like to say around here, the more than just human world. And let's see if you can figure out who this is. I know that one's a little tough this time, right? Thinking probably bird of some sort. You are right. Those are buzzards, and I'm going to tell you why in just a few moments. Welcome to the Compassion Consortium. I'm Reverend Sarah Bowen, and I'm joined today by co-founders Reverend William Melton and Victoria Moran. Animal Chaplain Jen Baker is here, and of course, our irreplaceable Trekkie Techie Phil. Our special guest is Zehra Abbas, co-founder of Green Islam and founder of Studio 89, and a whole bunch of things, actually a whole bunch of things that Zehra will be talking with Victoria about today, including a nonprofit community hub that you'll hear about from her. In order to ensure we don't have disruption during the service today, as usual, we've turned off most of the Zoom sharing functions, but we do look forward to seeing you and hearing your voices later during our small group fellowship time after the service. We meet for Sunday service on the third Sunday of every month, and we see many of you every month, and I'm so glad that we do. And if there's anyone new, we're excited to see you too. If you're new to us, welcome. We're an interfaith, an interspiritual, and interspecies community. And if those concepts are new to you and have you scratching your head, I invite you to read more about our approach and philosophy using the link that Jen will put into the chat. It's also compassionconsortium.org/about for those of you watching on the YouTube replay. Hello, future people. At the beginning of each service, I tell you all of that, and then I offer an acknowledgement from some sort of animal or habitat or religious observance or something that's going on that I muse about a little bit. I'm going to do all three of those today because March brings us so many holidays to choose from. We have Purim in the Jewish tradition. The Hindu celebration of Holi was just a week or so ago. I know because I got on the New York City subway and everybody was covered in color. We're also squarely in Ramadan and approaching Palm Sunday, but you might be less aware that we're getting close in the Zoroastrian tradition to a re-celebration of the prophet Zarathustra's birth. That's on the 26th of this month. Today also marks two animal holidays for those of you keeping track. The first is the start of National Animal Poison Prevention Week. That's a mouthful. The second is Buzzard Sunday, an annual celebration that dates back to 1957, when someone noticed the buzzards returned to Hinckley, Ohio on the same day every year, which is just amazing. And they started this festival. 9,000 people flocked to Hinckley, Ohio to see the birds return from their winter migratory hiatus. And each year they have a celebration. It has an early bird hike, skits, songs, stories, crafts to celebrate the return of buzzards. I think I might be in Ohio next March, folks. We'll see. I've long been fascinated by birds who get categorized by humans into this category called scavengers, as though being a biologically obligated eater of corpses were shameful rather than sacred or helpful to ecology in some way. So I see buzzards, vultures, condors, and other folks as cleanup crews of creation. Try that on for a second. Cleanup crews of creation. They make death less dangerous to the living. They interrupt the spread of disease. They return what has died in some ways back to life. And yet, because they're associated with dead bodies, they're often met with disgust instead of appreciation or gratitude. These wild beings whose labor quietly protects a common good in multi-species habitats. Then we bring that over to Zoroastrianism for a moment, because this issue became painfully clear in South Asia in the 1990s, when scientists linked a drug, diclofenac, which was used agriculturally for inflammation in bovines, right, in industrialized agriculture, and it led to kidney failure and death for the vultures when they fed on contaminated bovine carcasses. So unintentional impact of this drug was that the declines of the vultures were so severe that some bird communities were reduced by 95 to 99%, almost wiped out. And even though that veterinary drug was banned in India, Nepal, and Pakistan beginning in 2006, the problem didn't just vanish, as problems rarely do. More recent research shows that illegal use of that drug and other vulture toxic drugs remains an ongoing threat, which is why conservationists are investing time in vulture safe zones. I bet the people in Ohio would love this idea. Vulture safe zones, and pushing for tighter regulations. So let's ponder this for a moment as we start, because this is not only a biological issue and an ecological issue, that's a religious issue as well for Zoroastrians, especially Parsis in India, Pakistan. Because of Zoroastrian reverence for the elements, in their tradition, earth, fire, and water aren't supposed to be contaminated in any way. So when humans died, traditionally, they were laid out in these roofless dakmas, or towers of silence, to be processed, if you will, by vultures as the funerary folks who cleaned their corpses, cleaned their carcasses, returned to the web of life. But as the vultures disappeared, that ancient rite became harder and actually nearly impossible to sustain. So communities have had to improvise, and modernism helps along that way too, but improvise with alternatives. Solar concentrators, turning to burial, cremation, and kind of giving up these ideas or changing these ideas that were foundational to the faith. So when vultures vanished, a whole way of accompanying the dead was shaken. And that reminds us that poisoning is a multi-species issue. Poisoning is a multi-species issue. In this case, animal poisoning also impacted human mourning, human religious freedom, death care, bovines, vultures, an entire system. So as an interfaith community, my invitation for you this month, based on all of these things I've intersected together, is to notice curious intersections of religion and ecology and animal advocacy, and then ask ourselves some questions. How can we help protect so-called scavengers with policy and practice, advocating for the reduction of rodenticides and pesticides and lead contamination, all those things that impact multiple species? And how do we support wildlife rehabilitation and vulture conservation for the people who are on the foreground and the front lines of caring for birds who become sick or injured due to human actions? I've just returned from the National Wildlife Rehabilitators Association Symposium. There's another mouthful. And we spent some time learning about what was impacting these folks who are caring for so many different species. I'll be sharing that with you in an upcoming newsletter. But today, on this Buzzard Sunday, on the opening of Animal Poison Prevention Week, perhaps my prayer is simple. May we learn to see and help care for the beings many people have been taught to avoid. May we become people who protect species we might not usually focus on, because multi-species justice asks us to consider and take compassionate action for any species in danger of harm in any context that we learn about. That's it for my musings this month, folks. Over to you, William and Jen.
Beginning of each Sunday service, we remind ourselves of the tenets of agreement, which this community strives to uphold. Each month, we focus on one tenet. This month, it is tenet number 4, and it will be read by Compassion Consortium founder William Melton. As William reads the words aloud, we encourage everyone to take time to contemplate how the tenets can impact and influence your daily life. If you're unfamiliar with all of the tenets, please read the full list at the link just placed in the chat.
Number 4, we stand by the principles of inclusion, diversity, and equality, and hold these as essential in our human relations. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Let's just take a breath together to mindfully meditate on this idea.
Thank you, William.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen. That'll take us, that mindful meditation, into just a moment of practice, a minute or two here, folks. We do spiritual practice, mindfulness practices, meditation practices around here to help our own well-being and potentially help the well-being of others, helping us sustain ourselves so that we can keep doing the work we do. Practice is essential for well-being. And next month, I'll be sharing some research with you that I just completed on the impact of spiritual practice on well-being for animal-centric people, which is kind of fascinating. So it's not just us who are recommending this. But for now, take a breath and take a moment to settle into your seat. It's probably been a long week for you. It's been a long week for me, I know. See if you can soften your shoulders a bit. Close your eyes and rest them from the screen. Take a moment out for busyness, to just be for a moment. And allow your breath to settle. In Tibetan Buddhism, there's a practice called Tonglen. We haven't done it around here for a couple of years, but it means sending and receiving. In this practice, we breathe in the suffering of the world, and we breathe out compassion and care. Phil's just put an image up on the screen if you open your eyes gently. Picture it like this. We breathe in the suffering, and we breathe out compassion, like blowing a dandelion that's gone to seed. With just one breath, the seeds scatter outward, carried by the wind, spreading life into places we may never see. Those dandelion seeds land and may create lots of new dandelions, which makes me happy. My husband, not so much. So with that image in your mind, close your eyes again. And bring to your mind an animal or a group of animals or a habitat who might be suffering right now. Perhaps animals in factory farms or wildlife affected by climate change, or as I just mentioned, poisoning. Maybe animals in laboratories. Any beings who come to your mind. Notice what feelings arise in you as you bring those beings to mind. Do you feel grief or anger, helplessness, tenderness, frustration? All of those can arise. There's no need to push them away. This practice asks us to take those feelings in and metabolize them. Transform those feelings of grief or anger or frustration. As you breathe in, imagine gently drawing in the pain, the fear, the suffering. You're not taking it in as harm, you're taking it in to transform. Transform these emotions into action. Dissolve those emotions into the spaciousness of compassion inside of you. And as you breathe out, send compassion outward. In the anger and frustration, out compassion. In helplessness or hopelessness, and out compassionate action. Like our breath that lifts dandelion seeds into the air. Perhaps these thoughts will be carried farther than we can see. Sending relief, sending safety, sending the possibility of freedom and of care. Let's take a few more breaths. Breathing in those feelings that help us power our commitments to animals. And breathing out compassion that spreads across forests and oceans and deserts and farms and shelters and skies. In this way, we attend to our own well-being. We strengthen our commitments to other beings. And we hold in our minds the possibility that in some mysterious way, like dandelion seeds on the wind, this breath can transform more than just us. We may never see where that out-breath goes, where it lands, but it might travel further than we know. Take one final breath in, and a slow breath out. Ooh, folks, if you had a week like I did, you might have found that piece useful. I know I did, so thanks for practicing with me. And now turning it over to Jen.
Thank you, Sarah. That was perfect, actually, for this week, too. So thank you. That was nice. If you're not yet a compassionist, consider becoming one. At the Compassion Consortium, we are guided by a simple but profound truth. Compassion flourishes through community. Every gathering, reflection, and offering exists because of the generosity and care of those who feel called to support this sacred space. A monthly gift is more than a donation. It helps keep our gatherings accessible and our community thriving. By becoming a compassionist, you become part of a living expression of compassion, nurturing reverence for animals, care for one another, and the ongoing creation of a more gentle world. You can also make a one-time donation by debit card, credit card, Zelle, or PayPal by either clicking the donation link in the chat box or using your phone to scan the QR code on screen. Thank you for walking this path of compassion with us. Over to you, Victoria.
Hi, everybody. What a pleasure to be here at the Compassion Consortium as ever, and also to be introducing Zehra Abbas. You can read about her at length, and oh my goodness, this woman has so much going on. It is pretty astounding. Zehra is involved with a million things, and she actually started her philanthropic life in human rights. And as a very young person, she didn't shy away from the scary stuff. She was working with the Canadian Center for Victims of Torture and War Against Rape in Pakistan. And I mean, just she was really out there for people. And now she has opened up and she is there for people and animals and the planet and all there is. So, with everything in your background and the fact that you really did start in human rights and human issues, what do you say to people who are convinced that animal people don't care about humans?
Well, you know, in my experience, and really I can just speak to my personal experience, I find that many animal folks have actually arrived to caring for animals when they've already had a history of caring for humans. There's already a sense of accountability, responsibility, compassion, and care that is, you know, it's just something that we need to tap into, but lives amongst almost all of us. The concept of empathy and the neuroscience of empathy. We know that, you know, even children experience empathy, babies experience empathy. And so really it's just a matter of, um, I think perhaps communicating in our advocacy, uh, how much human rights impacts animal rights as well. When humans are stressed out and feeling like they don't know where their next meal is coming from, or they're stressed out about things that are happening in the world that are really quite dramatic and almost unnatural for us to be experiencing. With, I mean, there's a tremendous amount going on in the world right now. When we go online, we're overwhelmed with how many things there are. That can sometimes sadly drive down empathy. That's just how the neuroscience of the brain works, as far as I've learned. I'm not a neuroscientist, but I've spent a lot of time trying to understand, you know, what the hang up is. Like how come more people don't jump on board as soon as they learn that animals are hurting? And really, that's my conclusion, is there are a number of factors, and we just have to be mindful of that as advocates so that we can be more effective.
Well, I do want to cycle back into the neuroscience of empathy, which is something we've never touched on, and it's so fascinating. But first, I think everybody would like to get to know you. So it seems from what I've learned about you that you have a philanthropic story and a vegan story, and maybe they're the same, or maybe you need to tell us two stories to tell us about who you are.
Absolutely. I'll give you a quick summary and rundown. I was 18 when I dropped out of university. I was studying business admin, and it wasn't it wasn't feeding my soul the way I needed school to feed my soul. I actually really enjoyed school, and I wasn't enjoying economics, and I'd go to Toronto and walk around instead of going to class. And so, and I have such a wonderful mom. She encouraged me to really find what I wanted to do. And so I took some time to just work. And in that gap year, I ended up traveling to Pakistan, which is where I was born, where I'm from ethnically. I went to Pakistan for my cousin's wedding, and I went on a 3-week ticket, but ended up staying for 8 months. I started volunteering. I was reading a load of books. It was really my cousin who opened my eyes to what the lives of people struggling with poverty can be like. And the more I learned, the more empathic I became, the more I wanted to get engaged and involved. And I started volunteering at places like War Against Rape, and I came back a very changed person. I studied advertising only because in post-secondary, only because I didn't really know what to do with my life. And I was trying to comprehend why people didn't seem to care as much as my cousin cared, or other folks that I was seeing who were volunteering their lives away. How come they care so much, but so many of us are consumed with, you know, what fashion we're going to buy next? And in order to understand that, I thought, well, let me study advertising and see what I can learn. As a teenager, I worked in malls, and I thought, you know, this commerce, the way we consume, if we could just, you know, dampen this a little bit, I think we might have space for other things. And so I was really quite young and lost and didn't really know what to do. And studying advertising ended up being fantastic because I started a youth nonprofit right after graduating. And marketing, advertising, the skills I had learned ended up playing a key role in us being able to mobilize as a community group. We ended up building a nonprofit community hub that under the logo said humans, animals, planet, because we aim to be good for humans, animals, and the environment. However, we were selling organic cheese and organic milk and organic eggs and organic chicken that was halal and hand slaughtered and all the good stuff that's supposed to be humane. So we believed. And once I learned what that really means, we had no choice but to change our model to being a plant-based community hub. Community Hub Cafe. I don't know if I mentioned that part. I am fasting. And
Yes,
so it's Ramadan. And so I feel like it's the tail end. We open our fast in about a couple of hours. And
yes.
so I feel like my brain's a little bit slow. So please forgive me if I forget to mention certain things.
No, you don't sound slow at all. And when I look at all these things you're doing, you've got the community hub. Do we call that Studio 89 or Studio Point 89?
We call it Studio 89. Thank you.
Okay. And then Kind World Charity, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But the reason that we actually invited you to the Compassion Consortium is because you're a co-founder of Green Islam. And this is the interfaith part of our service where we talk about someone who is part of a religious or spiritual tradition to help us understand the teachings of that faith and how they juxtapose with kindness, compassion, vegetarian, vegan principles. So tell us about that in your life.
When I first went vegan, when I learned about what was happening to animals on the so-called humane farms, I thought to myself, I can't participate in this, as I'm sure so many of us here have had similar journeys. And I didn't quite understand why I felt that way until quite recently when I participated in a workshop with one Harvard professor, Michael Gantz. And it's a narrative change workshop. And he asked me, why do you believe what you believe? And I had to do some really deep digging. And every time I gave him an answer, he said, but why? And I would give him another answer and he'd say, but why? And what I realized is that the answer is right in front of me the whole time. The day I decided to become vegan, I was very reluctant actually. I had seen the short video on YouTube called Dairy is Scary. And I thought, this is vegan propaganda. No way could people do this to animals. This just doesn't seem right. Someone's trying to sell me something plant-based. I'm going to ask the dairy farmers of Canada. And so I joined their Facebook group. And I was already purchasing organic, what I thought was coming from small, cute dairy farmers who are taking care of their cows. And the more I chatted with them, the more reassured I became. And then one of them sent me a cattle rearing manual that is standardized for Canada. And she said, here you go, have a read through this. And I thought, I'm never going to read this. I feel really good about everything they've said to me. We love our cows, we love our animals. You know, their well-being is directly associated with our well-being. Why wouldn't we want to take care of them? And I thought, yes, exactly, of course. So I can carry on with my steady diet of Nutella, Twix, Kit Kat, Ferrero Rocher, Lindor, all the milk chocolate in the world. I enjoyed very, very much. And I thought, this is good. But for some reason, I clicked the file. It was a PDF file, and I started perusing and skimming through, and I came across a portion that very clinically spoke about how when the mothers are separated from the babies, when the babies are taken away, when the calves are taken away, the mothers become depressed, and that impacts their lactation levels. And so if you put all the mothers together, that they will comfort each other and that will help their lactation levels. And I thought, oh, darn, I have to go vegan because in the Quran, it says animals are made in communities like you. And at the end, they will be called to their Lord, meaning they will testify in how we treat them. And so in that moment, I very reluctantly was like, oh, this is not okay. I cannot participate in this. And yet, I thought for the majority of my vegan life thus far that I made that decision based on ethics. But what Michael Gans helped me see was that my ethics are actually grounded in my faith. They're grounded in the ideas of what I think ethics are based on what I learned about Islam that my mom taught me very specifically when I was a child. She would tell me about how God has created us and how God has created nature and how all of nature works together in harmony and how we are to take care of animals and how we are to take care of the environment, how you can't even pull on a blade of grass just for fun or pull a leaf just for fun. It's you have to respect creation. And so it really came together for me. That's why. That's the journey. Yeah.
That is beautiful. And yet, I think many people would say we just don't meet a lot of Muslim vegans. Now, obviously, you know them in Green Islam.
Yes.
It doesn't seem to be, um, a big part of the population yet. So, what's happening there? What can you tell us?
Such a great question and something that I wrestle with on a daily basis. Muslims, like everyone else, so many folks are animal lovers, have pets in their homes, have such compassion for the pets in their lives, their family members, right? So why isn't that connecting to what are considered food animals? I think one of the greatest barriers we have, very similar to the Jewish community, is divine permission. The concept of halal is to most Muslims a concept of humane. Just like I wrongly believed once upon a time that what I was consuming was in alignment with spirituality, is what I find the vast majority of Muslims I come across believe about the halal concept. There are even videos online I've been watching recently, young influencers who, in the current political climate, are educating folks on Islam. And they'll say, well, halal means that the animals are, taken care of and they're not killed in front of one another. And there's so many rules to halal. And they genuinely believe. And these videos will have 17,000, 37,000, 900,000 likes and comments because this is what people truly believe. They do not know what the industry is doing today. Now, why don't they know what the industry is doing today? I think one reason is that since the tragedy of 9/11, Muslim countries have been simply ravaged. There is a situation of, life and death going on in so many Muslim countries. And so when a lot of folks are thinking about where do our donation dollars go, we're a very, very generous community. In fact, charity is one of the pillars of Islam. It's one of the 5 pillars. We are, in order to be Muslim and to be a good Muslim, you have to engage in charity. And so where do all these charity dollars go? They really go abroad to life and death situations of humans where humans are needing medical care or food, aid. That's typically where folks are thinking about first. And so I do think that there's quite a few barriers when it comes to the Muslim community. And one aspect is also that a lot of advocacy doesn't necessarily narrow in on the Muslim community. And so what happens is when Muslims come across vegan activists, they might see pigs on, and their pigs are adorable and sweet and kind and amazing. And so I completely understand why they're on all of the collaterals, the logos of the animal rights organizations, or the flyers and the advocacy materials. But immediately Muslims go, that's not us. We don't eat pigs. We respect animals. We only eat halal. This is not a us problem. This is a them problem, right? And so there are many such barriers that I find tend to keep Muslims from. And then there's the standard stuff, right? There's objections of health. People don't always understand that you can be healthy. A lot of vegan foods are, people don't know how to take vegan food and turn it into traditional food. Folks don't know how to be in community when altering to a vegan lifestyle. I know is very challenging for me. I used to cry big, big tears just feeling really lonely after family parties or just, get-togethers with friends. And so it can be a lot to fully convert over.
Mm. And I think that's something that everybody goes through in
Mhm.
every tradition. And it's just, it almost seems like in the traditions where people are closer, it's more difficult. I
Mhm.
think that it's probably if somebody's going to go vegan and they just grew up in a completely, secular household and didn't do the family dinner thing much and all of that, it's an easier transition. So just to educate us a little bit, you mentioned the one pillar of charity. What are the other four?
The other four are prayer, of course, fasting during Ramadan, going to Hajj, which is a pilgrimage that we do, and believing that God is one and Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, was his last prophet.
And can you give us, and I know this is a huge question to ask when we have 3.5 minutes left, but just give us an understanding, those of us who do not know much about the Prophet Muhammad, just tell us if you were introducing him to us, what would you say?
And I'm going to introduce him particularly in association with what I know of him when it comes to animals and caring for the environment. What we believe as Muslims is that he would smile at ants and smile at trees. He smiled at everyone alongside humans. That smiling in Islam is actually also considered an act of charity. And charity in Islam is also considered an act of prayer. Um, Prophet Muhammad there's so many stories of Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, who looking out for animals. There are stories of a sparrow that was distressed because some folks had taken the babies from the nest, and he said, "Who is distressing this sparrow?" Right? He spoke about this camel that looked emaciated and said, beware of the way you treat these creatures, like beware of God and his creation. He said, you don't have to. There's a man who asked him, I decided not to sacrifice the sheep, and he said, well, if you had mercy on the sheep, then God will have mercy on you. And he said this twice. And so there is a story after story. We're not allowed to separate baby calves from their mothers. So that moment I speak of when I was reading that cattle rearing manual, we are very explicitly told that you can take a little bit of milk after the calf has had their fill, and you cannot exhaust the mom's supply. We are not allowed to distress the animals in any way. We're not allowed to tie them down. There's so many rules. You can tie them, but not in a way like there are other sort of teachings that say, tie your camel, but really those are more metaphorical. We are supposed to have tremendous amounts of respect for animals to the extent that, just like Judaism, in Islam, you are allowed to eat animals. But there are so many rules around how you can eat them that today's industry goes out the window. It's nearly impossible, right?
Yes.
So,
That's fascinating because I've heard that from some rabbis as well, that
mm,
kosher rules are really just to make people vegetarian. So
yeah.
this is so fascinating, and there's so much more to talk with you about. So just in our last few seconds, because you are going to be in the vegan issues breakout room if people want to hear more from you, but just if you could give us a sentence to finish with on, you talk about empathy education based on neuroscience principles. Just give us a thought on what neuroscience has to do with empathy.
A few years ago, I met a philanthropist, just before COVID, actually. I met a philanthropist who said, I raise so much money and we donate millions of dollars every year. And we lift people out of poverty and we educate a whole bunch of youth. But how do we make sure that they don't end up becoming the next businessman who's exploiting the environment or the next slumlord, right? How do we actually create good people. And so that sent me on a journey to work to understand the human mind. And also because I thought when I first learned about, child exploitation on cocoa farms or human trafficking, I thought we would tell people and everybody would care. Everybody would say, this is a travesty. We will only buy fair trade chocolate and fair trade coffee, right? But that didn't happen. And then I thought when we learned about what we're doing to small farmers, our food supply through biotech companies, I thought people immediately would say, oh, we must only buy organic. And then when I learned about animals, I thought people would say, oh, we can't ever participate in the harm of animals. We must stop eating this. But people don't react that way. And
No.
so I was confounded as to why really good people that I know who are kind and loving and thoughtful and compassionate weren't aligning their values with their consumption habits. And even myself, there are many things that I have a blind spot to. My plastic footprint sometimes is just
Yeah.
too much, right?
Yeah.
And so
Mine
how do we
too.
align
I
that?
I hate to stop you, Zara,
Oh,
but to
no,
keep
that's fine.
us on track, we need to
Yes,
stop. For those of you who want more, there's that breakout room and all the other wonderful breakout rooms. So turning it back over to Jen, and thank you, Zara. That was stunning.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. It'll be great to be in your breakout room. So during every Sunday service, we offer a song of compassion for your consideration and silent reflection. Today's song, Go Vegan for Earth Day, made for Peta by C5 from the Outside, reminds us that our daily choices, especially what we eat, touch the lives of animals, the health of our planet, and our own well-being. Compassion is more than a feeling. It is something we practice in small, everyday ways. May this song inspire us to widen our circle of compassion. Even the smallest choices can help create a kinder world for all beings. As we look forward to April, how will you celebrate Earth Day? Let's enjoy it now.
You know what time it is. Time to go vegan. Yeah. You know what time it is. Come on. I don't mean to come off like I'm ridiculing the preacher, but here's a couple reasons to consider going vegan. I was talking to my good folks over at Peta. We all impacting the world from the things that we eat. They ain't had no pork chops in the Garden of Eden. I'm just teasing, but it ain't humane, I'm just saying. These animals like us, they feel pleasure and pain, separated from their families just for our gain. Going vegan, one person could save over 200,000 gallons of water a year. That's the price of your change. Farming animals is ruining the land. We gotta take care of the earth for all our children that's grand. They gotta live after us, it's worth the sacrifice. All our rainforest vanishing, that's a tragic sight. For a meal that only lasts for a night, is it worth it? We gotta start eating our meals with purpose. Going vegan could protect you from diseases and provide you with all the nutrients you needed. On top of all of that, the food is great. You able to change your fate by changing what's on your plate. Go vegan. If you really care about the planet, go vegan. Things you eat contribute to the damage. Go vegan. If you wanna eat good and live healthy, go vegan. If you put some vegan food in your belly, go vegan. If you love the animals, show compassion, go vegan. If you want a better world, let's make it happen, go vegan. Even if it's only for a day, go vegan. That day can make a change.
Hey, there are some amazing things going on in the world. And one of them is that the country of Denmark, where they seem to be so forward thinking on so many things, has come up with a plan to save animals, both land and water living animals. So, Jen, would you mind taking over and telling everybody about what's going on in Denmark?
Sure, I'd love to. So in Denmark, an innovative ecological idea is reshaping the relationship between cities and nature. Floating islands covered with wildflowers that you can see here are being installed in urban harbors to create habitats for bees, butterflies, and aquatic life. These islands create quiet, protected spaces away from pedestrians and traffic, benefiting birds as well because in busy ports and canals, safe nesting or resting areas are rare. At the same time, the structures improve the underwater ecosystem. The submerged parts of the islands act like artificial reefs, allowing algae, shellfish, and small fish to attach themselves and form the basis of a new aquatic habitat. What's especially inspiring is how simple the idea is. Giving nature back a little space, even in the middle of a busy city, which I love to see, with creativity and care, even small interventions can help restore life and biodiversity. And it's a reminder that compassion for animals and the earth can take many forms, and that hopeful solutions are blooming in places we might least expect.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, so after I go to Ohio to see these buzzards on Buzzard Sunday next year, I'm hopping a plane to Denmark to go hang out on that. I saw there was a little place on the side. I'll do it quietly, not to bother the birds and the bees and all of that. But how amazing. Yeah, think of all the deforestation that we humans do and the kindness and the seeming simpleness that could be so profound for beings to do that. That is good news, Jen. That is good news, Victoria. Thank you guys for bringing us that, for the two of you for bringing us that information. So there is good news in the world, and as Zara attested to, there's a lot of other stuff going on in the world, isn't there? Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we might need some help with. So Phil is going to open up the chat, folks, and we ask you to, respectfully and prayerfully and purposefully and kindly and all those words that have been used today, to, enter your information in the chat about what good news you see going on in the world, and also what not so great news you could use some support for. Do you have a family member who's ill? I don't know, fleshy or furry or winged or any of those other words we might use? Do you have something that is happening in your life for which you'd like some support? And we are a community of support, so I encourage you all to attend to each other in the chat. Offer each other some kudos, some prayers, some hugs, some hearts, some whatever you got. Phil put in the chat just now that fit grass is illegal in New York, to which I thought, what? Fit grass is illegal in New York. What is he talking about? And then Phil corrected the spelling and said foie gras is illegal in New York City. That is some good news indeed. I will go for that. I saw a video once about that. Folks, if you've not seen one of those, be careful, but it's a good thing that that is illegal in New York City. We've got some people who are celebrating birthdays. We've got some laws passing banning horse-drawn carriages. In New York City, I noticed we have all these bicycle-drawn carriages now with really bright LED lights in them and music and the whole thing. I don't know how the pigeons feel about them. But we have more and more human-drawn carriages, and I was very happy to see that. So congratulations, St. Augustine, Florida, for passing a law banning horse-drawn carriages. That is good news indeed. And for those of you who need prayer, for those who are ill, or for those who have passed, please attend to each other. And I'm also going to offer a little bit of a blessing, as we usually do, for some particular species or being. And you guessed it, folks, this one's for buzzards and other so-called scavengers. So while you're attending to the chat, I'm going to offer these words. A blessing for buzzards and other so-called scavengers. May the wide thermals lift you to circle where others will not look. May the sky hold you gently as you read the language of endings, the still field, the hush where breath once lived. Blessed are you, the patient keepers of balance, cleaners of the forgotten places, turners of death back toward the living earth. Where others see ugliness, may we learn to see your purposefulness. Where others turn away, may we remember that purposefulness in arriving after the story seems to close for each creature to do that work. May your dark wings write slow prayers and blessings and sacred words over highways and hillsides. May the wind always find the hollows of your feathers. May hunger guide you and never shame you, for nothing that feeds the world is unholy for scavengers. So we bless the circling buzzard, the crow at the roadside, the beetle beneath the leaves, and every quiet worker of necessary tasks in an ecosystem. May the earth remember your service. May the sky always open for you. And may we humans learn, watching your patient spirals, how even endings can be a form of grace. So folks, keep your eyes out for the buzzards, the turkey vultures, the hawks, the whoever's above your head this month. Offer them some sacred words, blessings, prayers, whatever feels natural for you. And in this moment, please join me in the closing prayer or blessing that we offer each month together. Aloud in your habitat or silently in your head habitat. That's new. We're going to do that. Head habitat, the habitat of your brain. May all creatures everywhere be happy and free. May the thoughts, words, and actions of our lives contribute to this happiness and this freedom for all. And please add your closing word in here, whatever it is. Ashe, Amen, Amin. May it be so. So mote it be. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Could go on forever, and so it is. Thank you, folks, for joining us for Sunday service. We are so delighted that you were here today. We hope that you will stick around for fellowship after a few announcements from Jen.
Please join us for our April service with Daniel Mascarenas. Stay tuned for our newsletter for updates on the April service, and you can register next month at the link in the chat that Sarah's going to give you. And don't forget about all our wonderful monthly regular gatherings for vegan meditation, activist well-being, and pet loss support circle. Details are always available on our website and in the monthly newsletter.